my hobby in here in Muskogee. Been involved in history in Muskogee for many, many years. And about 20, 25 years ago, I started an interest in doing some for a ghost stories tour, and really got interested in some of the interesting haunted history in our community of Muskogee. The home we're in now is the Thomas-Foreman Home. It was built in 1898. It's one of the oldest remaining homes in Muskogee. It was once built on the open prairie here on Mulgee Street. And it is a treasure trove of Oklahoma history, and really a fascinating place with all the items that are here, the original of the home. But it has a lot of history, a lot of mysterious things that have gone on in this home over the years. And some of them I have actually personally done, and giving tours here and being in there over the years. Some of them I've got from talking to former curators, people that have actually been in the home, actually were volunteers in the home over time. And it is, I want to say about 5 or 6 years ago, with a state publication or so, it was named one of the most haunted places in the state of Oklahoma. This room that we're in right now was actually the original parlor of the home. And Judge Thomas would be in this room many, many times, and obviously, and it was also later on used as a guest room for people that would come and visit the Foremans. But Judge Thomas was a federal judge. He was named to be federal judge. That's why he came here in the 1890s. And he came here. He had a prominent record as a congressman out of Illinois, and knew a lot of well-known people in the country. But when he came here, he actually lived in a hotel downtown, but he wanted to live out, and he met the Creek chief here. Pleasant Porter owned huge amounts of land out here and allowed him as a federal judge to be out here. And this is before actually the allotments were going place. So he allowed him to go out here and build a home. And I think it was at one time probably going to be a temporary home for him out here, but he ended up living in it until the time of his death. After he was the federal judge here, he became a private lawyer and went into law practice. And one of his people that he was associated with was a man by the name of Grant Foreman, who soon would become his son-in-law, as he married Carolyn, his daughter, who had also come here to Indian Territory. And sadly, one of the court cases that Judge Thomas's is after the Oklahoma statehood, he went actually down to McAllister, to the newly built at that time penitentiary there, and was meeting with a client. And at that time, the first prison riot in the history of Oklahoma broke out, and the perpetrators armed themselves, got some guns from some of the workers there and guards, and actually proceeded into the room where Judge Thomas was. And Judge Thomas had a cane with him. He had been in the Civil War. He had a mini ball that had been lodged in his leg, and he never had it removed, and it was a pain for him all his life. Most of the pictures you see with him with a cane, and he had a large collection of cane, which a lot of them were in his home. And when that happened, he got up, and it said that he reached for his cane to get up, and they thought possibly it was a weapon. So they shot him in cold blood, and he was killed in McAllister. Huge event here because Judge Thomas, one of the prominent citizens of Muskogee, obviously a former federal judge, a lot of prominent people knew him here, not only here, but even all the way back to Washington. So he was laid in state after his death in this room. I don't know if it was this bad or not. It could have been, because we haven't moved. A lot of things haven't been moved over the years. They've just been, where they were. That's the unique thing about this home. But he was laid in state here. People from all over the world came to see him. Prominent people would come in on the train. His funeral was a big deal. He was originally buried here in Muskogee, But later his body was reinterred and moved here, and he's now buried in Arlington Cemetery in Washington, D.C. I got the privilege of actually going to his grave and finding him in that huge cemetery several years ago. But he's buried there now. But there are some strange things in this room. Now, one of the things you'll see in this room are all these paintings. Judge Thomas's daughter, Carolyn, and his son-in-law, Grant. One of the things they did was they would help artists. So a lot of artists would come here and leave them paintings and leave them their works. And one of these things you'll see is on this door right here. And I don't know exactly why it's hanging on the door, but I was many years ago, I want to say about 3 years ago, not that long ago, I was in here and I was talking to a new employee of the museum that's involved with caretaking this. And we were talking through some of these stories because we wanted the person that was taking over this to know some of these stories. And we were talking a little bit about Judge Thomas and talking a little bit about some of these things. And all of a sudden, we exited the room. We were talking, we kind of, it just kind of felt a little strange in here, I gotta admit. But we walked out of the room, walked down the hallway, and all of a sudden we heard this loud crash. And we had, we thought, well, maybe something we knocked over fell. This picture, which, we can see right here, is not really easy to pull off there. I mean, it just doesn't, I don't pull this thing off. I mean, I'm trying to pull it down. I can't, you have to pull it up and take it off. And it was probably 6 feet from where it is right now. So if it had fell, it would have fell straight down. But it was laying in the floor when we came back in the room. And I witnessed it was about right there. And it's like somebody came in here, took that, and threw it. And, we were like, oh, okay, we've been in here, we've given tours before, but that was really the closest feeling I had to feel, okay, there's something in this house that really must be something to it. I've had a few other oddball things happen to me, but that one really got me because it's just like, okay, somebody didn't like what we were saying or didn't like us in here. Maybe they didn't like the person we were trying to hire. I don't know at that time, but it's quite a thing. But that actually happened. There was the actual former director of the home was here, and then this new employee, and then myself. So we all three witnessed it. It was not, and we were all just taken aback. It was just like, okay, that's pretty weird. And that's one of the stories, that of the home. There's many others. One of the things that we talked about Judge Thomas's cane collection that he had here. One of the things that a lot of people observed, even back in the 1970s here, will tell you that if you're here late at night or by yourself and it gets quiet, you will hear kind of the tapping of a cane on the floor here. It sounds like that, We know Judge Thomas there's a whole box of canes in here. There's nothing. He probably had 40 or 50 canes in his collection from all over. The people would give him some of them very fancy canes, and sometimes that cane tapping sound has been heard. And we don't know what it actually is, but it just is. There is another story that comes to my mind from a lady that she wasn't really volunteering. She was doing some community service work off from some activity during the 1970s, and the former curator had her in the home as to do some work in the home, do some cleaning, dusting, and stuff like that. So she was in the main room here, not this room, but she was doing some dusting, and it said that all of a sudden she felt like a breeze or something on her, and she turned around and she saw a lady dressed in Victorian white costuming all the way down to the floor, and she just kind of looked at her and just disappeared right in front of her. And she said she would never work in that home again, and she basically ran out the front door and would not come back in. And then the people here couldn't get her to work, and we didn't. Of course, some of them thought maybe she was just trying to get out of work, but we didn't tell her anything. There was nothing ever said anything about the haunted part of the home. But we do have some pictures, especially of Carolyn, who died in this home in 1968, dressed in solid white. So it's just we don't know. That's one of the stories of the home. This is a really unique rocking chair. We believe it probably was brought from Illinois by Judge Thomas. It was said to be his favorite chair in the home, that he would spend a lot of his evenings rocking in it in his discussions with other people and relaxing here in the home. And we see one of the things we also see with it is one of his canes. This is one of the most noted canes that we have in the home, because Judge Thomas was in the Seminole burning trial, which was a very famous case in Indian Territory. He was the judge, and one of the convicted members that did the burning of one of the native Seminole Indians was convicted and spent time in the penitentiary. And during his time, I guess he still thought, well, Judge Thomas must have treated him well. During the court case, he made John Thomas a cane and presented it to him in 1905 after his time. So it was noted to be his cane, and even today it has John R. Thomas's initials on it. Over the years, one of the most mysterious things has been this chair. All the way back into the early 1970s, different curators, different people that have worked in the home have noted this chair will start rocking at times. It's been tried to be debunked at times. Maybe somebody went by it, somebody maybe touched it. But there'll be times when nobody is actually in the room at all, and all of a sudden you'll see the rocking of the chair start as if Judge Thomas is there watching it. So I've noted it a few times being in here, that all of a sudden I'll look up and that chair will just be kind of moving just like that. And no explanation, but you almost feel like the presence of John R. Thomas is here, maybe still in this house, still in this chair. There's a lot of things in this room that have come forward, different things that people have said. One of the things there's so many stories to tell here. This is one of the treasures to me in Oklahoma that is, we trying to save it, but it's not always easy to get people to come here. Mm-hmm. But people don't know all the different stories. One of the things that they did, the Carolyn and Judge Foreman did, is they had a caretaker, a black man, and they liked him so much they actually paid for him to go to dental school. And he became a dentist, but he was still friends with him, and he would still come here and be their caretaker. And he would take care of Grant, and sometimes sneaking some alcohol or whatever, what I've been told. But in his early days, this house behind us that we're trying to do some restoration to, this little deal, he actually lived in there. And but anyway, in the very early days, even in his 90s, after Carolyn had passed away, he would come here almost weekly to take care of the house. Wow. And so we have records of him coming up. When the Historical Society was running this as a museum themselves, he would come here, and we have, things. And one of the things, he would say is he would be outside working in the yard, and actually out this window here, he would see Carolyn's face in the window looking at him. And we've had a lot of things in that room. We had a paranormal group 6 or 7 years ago, and they got, I don't know what we call an EVP or whatever you want to call that, of a woman's voice in this room. And it was, actually it was on a radio show. But that room is
on a radio show.
Yeah, they did actually an overnight radio show here one time for KS. And they had the disc jockeys and whatever. I'm sure it's a promotional fun thing for them. But they actually did a overnight in here one night, and they had somebody there, like a paranormal person, doing some of that stuff, and that's where they got the EVP and different things. So
What did they hear on the EVP?
They heard, I don't know that we could hear what it was. We could definitely hear a female voice. And then they also got a scream, which that was definitely, I heard that. They were supposed to send it to me, but like a lot of things, it never gets done. Like I said, this room that was her closet for what all that was, all her clothes.
And that's her dress, I guess.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's white.
Yeah, and it's white. I know. That's kind of crazy.
Kind of, when you're in here during, this time of day, it doesn't seem too spooky or scary. But when you're in here, especially sometimes I've closed up a tour or something late at night, you just feel like you need to get out of this place. And you just feel like you're in somebody's home, and maybe they don't necessarily appreciate you being here.